The MacSween family emerged from the mists of time at Droag near Dunvegan in the northwest of Skye, with Angus MacSween, who was born in 1740. The early generations of the family were fishermen and crofters, living a very hard life in black houses with peat fires, and with the church taking a great interest in their moral and spiritual well-being. The family moved to Kyle, Stockinish, in the Bays area of Harris, sometime before 1770, as part of the Harris landowners' attempt to develop the fishing industry on the east coast of Harris. The family remained in Kyle, Stockinish, until 1842, when they moved to Scalpay, when it was first broken into crofts. By the late 1800s, many of the people were moving to Glasgow to find employment, and a Highlanders enclave developed in the area called York Hill, which comprised York Hill Street, Nairn Street and Esmond Street. In 1925, the Highlanders Institute opened as a place for Gaelic speakers in Glasgow to meet, and their dance hall was packed every Friday night. Fergie, he had a stutter, became the resident band in 1959. It closed in 1979. The MacSweens originated in Skye and Harris, and the map shows the drift south and east to find work. The graph of the number of MacSweens in the 1841 to 1921 census shows a huge dip in 1901, which is presumably caused by the movement of people to England and abroad. The diagram shows all of our close relatives in the MacSween family. Roddy Norman MacSween came from Scalpay, where his grandfather was a butcher and general merchant. His father was the minister in Kinloch in Lewis. Sir Roderick Norman MacIver MacSween had a very distinguished medical and academic career, but owned up to having shot peas into Miss Kelly's hat during services at Strath Parish Church when he was a youngster. Sir Edward Montague Compton Mackenzie was not a Scot, but he embraced everything Scottish, and his prolific writing career included Whisky Galore and The Monarch of the Glen, amongst many others. He was a founding member of the SNP in 1928. On the right is his first wife, Faith, but early in the marriage she had an affair with an Italian pianist, which Compton knew about. Faith lived in London, and Compton moved about, before finally settling in Barra. After the death of Faith, he married his secretary, Christina MacSween, in 1962, but unfortunately she died the following year. In 1965, he married Christina's sister, Lillian MacSween. At the time of this marriage, he was 82 years old. This is the house that Compton built on Barra in the 1930s. Here he gained inspiration and found creative solitude. Compton often visited Margaret Fay Shaw and her husband, John Lorne Campbell, who were Gaelic culture scholars at their house on the Isle of Canna, and his typewriter, along with other personal items, are now part of the collection at Canna House. Time magazine described Compton as the crusty old man of Scottish literature. Amongst his many interests, he was president of the Croquet Association and the Siamese Cat Club. Christina MacSween is your mum's second cousin. This is the family home of Christina Morrison, née MacSween, and her husband John, who is a retired fisherman. And Norman was a fisherman. A native of Scalpay and Harris, he left school at 14 and became a fisherman like his father. In his younger days, fishing was booming, and there were 5 curing stations coping with the herring landings. He went on to become a much-loved minister and hospital chaplain, and several hundred people attended his funeral. When we went to Harris on holiday with Ellen in 2004, we were invited to their home for a meal, and we were treated like the prodigal son, although there had been no contact between the two families for more than 50 years. Sophie gave us an ashet and a terrine from Shawnee Moore's dinner set, which she had been keeping just in case your mother ever turned up. John MacSween's father had been a fisherman on Scalpay, and John followed him. He married Anne MacDonald, a school teacher, who went on to become a councillor and prominent member of the community. They moved to the village of Ness in Lewis, where Annie runs the Ness Historical Society, which has a well-developed museum in the village. Their son Donald MacSween appears on television regularly in a programme called Anne Lot, which is a documentary following Donald as he tries to make it as a full-time crofter. Their son Innes is a Free Church of Scotland minister in the Inverness area. Kirsty, or Christina, was your grandfather's first cousin, and she lived to be 110 years old. When we visited her in 2004, she said her daughter would make us a cup of tea. The daughter appeared from the kitchen, walking using a Zimmer frame. Your grandfather had a brother, Roderick, who was working as a transport manager at a paper mill in Cambridge when he was called up to World War II. In basic training, he contracted pneumonia and died, leaving his widow with 2 young children, Ellen and John. On the left, we have the marriage of Roderick MacSween and Ellen MacLeod in 1936 in Glasgow. On the right is Ellen as a widow with her 2 young children back in Glasgow. John and Ellen's mother's family came from the Uig area in Skye, and in 1958 the siblings set off to visit friends there. Ellen was a regular visitor to Scalpay to keep in touch with her grandfather. Ellen was Director of Nursing at Raigmore in Inverness when the new hospital was opened by the Queen in 1985. After Ellen's mum died, the 2 children were cared for by uncles and aunts. A year later, John got a place at the Royal Hospital School in Ipswich, from where he went on to join the Royal Navy. John served for 18 years, and these are his medals. One of John's photos from his service days. In 1966, John married Bronwyn Williams in Kirkcaldy. And this is their daughter, Kynwyn. Kynwyn with her children Rory and Gregor, and your mum with her grandchildren Fraser and Gregor. This is the Carr family of Linlithgow. The earliest members of the Carr family were coal miners from the Durham area. William Carr, born in 1855, moved to Bo'ness as an ironstone miner. Auntie Anne on Scalpay with her grandfather, Shawnee Moore, and her cousins John and Ellen MacSween. Christmas at the MacSween family home in Bridge of Don in 1973. Roderick Carr as a potential organ donor. The wedding of Roderick Carr and Joanne Tolcher at the Royal Naval College, Dartmouth in 1987. Recovering a damaged canoe on the River Dee. The 9 generations of the main line of descent from Angus MacSween, born in 1740. The first known MacSween lived at Roag on Skye, a village which straggles west along the north side of Loch na Feolin. To the north of the village lie MacLeod's Tables. Sometime before 1770, the family moved from Roag to Kyle's Stockinish in the Bays area on the east side of Harris. The roads on this map were not built until 1897. So at the time that the MacSween family were here, the only access would have been by boat. It is known that the MacSween family's address was number 2 Kyle Stockinish, and there are the substantial remains of 2 black houses there, marked in green, one of which would have been occupied by Angus. Here is the modern harbour at Kyle Stockinish, with the remains of the 2 black houses up on the hill behind. In 1842, the family moved from Kyle Stockinish to Scalpay, when the island was first split into crofts. This is Scalpay in the early 1880s, with the croft numbers shown. The MacSweens occupied croft numbers 26, 27 and 30. This is the centre of the village on South Harbour, with the post office, the church and a tiny harbour at the head of the inlet. A little further down the inlet lies Lagandoyne, with Shore Street, where all of the houses were occupied by MacSweens. These are the occupants of the houses at Lagandoyne in the early 1900s. North Harbour developed as the main centre for the fishing boats. The big slate roof building on the left is the school. You can see the long strips of the lazy beds and stooks of hay. The long black house below the school was occupied by Margaret MacSween, who moved into Shawnee Moore's house at Lagandoyne when he died. The shed in front of the school was a shop. This is an iconic boat in the MacSween family. She was a Zulu-class boat, 46 feet long, with a 13.5-foot beam. Built in 1896, she was in service until 1961. The crew from left to right are John MacSween, 1869 to 1950, who owned the boat in 1904, and was Shawnee Moore's brother, his son Donald, John McLennan, David Morrison and his son Alistair. The original lighthouse on Ailing Glass at the east end of Scalpay, circa 1789. It was one of the original 4 lights erected by the commissioners of the Northern Lights and the first in the Hebrides. That shows the heavy shipping traffic that was present in the area at the end of the 1700s. 12 York Hill Street, Glasgow, is the ground floor flat beyond the far door. Various members of the MacSween family, including your great-grandparents, Ellen's parents, and your grandparents, all lived here at different times. It seems that there must have been a big demand for these flats, and they were passed on through the family. Seated on the left, we have your great-grandmother, Kate Ruey, and her sons Roderick and Ian. On the right, we have your great-grandmother, Kate Ruey, with Ellen. This is the boat that Shawnee Moore worked on, the SS Findhorn. It sailed a triangular route from Glasgow to Bristol, returning via Belfast. It carried passengers and general cargo. This is the crew of the SS Findhorn, with Shawnee Moore holding the lifebelt. When Shawnee Moore retired, he moved back to Scalpay and built this house, which was called Struanside. Ellen describes it as a cosy little house. The blue boat is sitting on the site of Shawnee Moore's house. Shawnee Moore passing the time of day outside the post office. The post office was the hub of the community. Another view of the post office with the church behind. The enormity of the task facing the herring ladies can be gauged from the stacks of barrels in the background. The lady on the left is Mary MacSween, born in 1911, the sister of Alistair MacSween of Fernbray. Both of your grandparents were involved with running the Clachan at the Empire Exhibition in Glasgow in 1938. On the left are your grandparents Ian and Emma on holiday in Tiree with the family. On the right is your grandfather Ian in Inverness in 1949 for the Maud. Your grandfather won the Maud Gold Medal in 1949 for male solo Gaelic singing and also the Oban and Lorne Medal for Gaelic singing. This happens very rarely and is known as the Grand Slam. One of my favourite pictures of your mum. The family moved around from Glasgow to Stornoway, to Old Wat and to Countess Wells before settling in Aberdeen, where they lived variously at number 2 Demount Gardens and a flat in Skene Street before settling in Bridge of Dawn. This is the old schoolhouse at Old Wat, where the toilet was at the bottom of the garden and there was no electricity. Your mum and her sister attended Bonnie Kelly School when they lived at Old Wat. Your grandfather was Aberdeenshire Council's speech and drama advisor, and this was the next old schoolhouse where the family lived. Your great-grandmother came from Tiree, and as a child, your mum was sent off unaccompanied to stay there for the summer holidays. An aunt met her off the train in Glasgow and took her to the airport to fly to Tiree in a de Havilland Rapide biplane. We married in 1969 at Beechgrove Church in Aberdeen, and here we see both sets of parents, my brother Cameron and your Auntie Anne. Your mum quickly took to the outdoor life and enjoyed the trips to the hills. Your great-great-grandfather's wife, Mary, was the daughter of John McDermott of Scalpay. John was the first person to conduct public worship on Scalpay. He was self-appointed and unpaid. Your mum's grandmother, Catherine, was from the Campbell family of Scalpay, who were known as the Post Office Campbells, for obvious reasons. These are your mum's great-grandparents, Roderick and Mary Campbell. And these are your mum's great-great-grandparents, Kenneth and Rachel Campbell, sitting on the post office steps. Another branch of the Post Office Campbells leads to William Morrison. William was a seaman and the family lived at this house in Tarbert, Harris. Flora and William Morrison, when we visited them in 2004. Your great-grandfather was Archibald Brown, who was a policeman in Glasgow and a local councillor. On the left is Archibald Brown with his chain of office as a councillor. On the right is Archibald Brown with his wife Anne Campbell. Archibald's roots were in Aberdeenshire and Anne's were in the island of Tiree. Archibald and Anne lived in Esmond Street in the Highlanders' enclave of York Hill in Glasgow. This is a writing slope presented to your mum's great-grandfather Alexander Brown when he retired from working as an overseer at Correnny Quarry. Correnny Quarry lies in the Aberdeen to Afford Road at its junction with the road to Kemney. In 1884, your mum's grandfather, Archibald Brown, was born in Correnny Cottages, which are marked on the map.
Ur can jogo samara gragene
Your mum's grandmother, Anne Campbell, came from Cornigvore on Tiree, and there are a couple of interesting connections in her family. Archibald Campbell was your mum's great-grandfather, and he worked on cruise ships. On the left is Alistair Campbell, who worked for British Telecom, and when we were on holiday in Tiree in 1981, he showed us round the radio communications facility on Tiree for communicating with the transatlantic jets. He retired to Loch Awe village, where, perched high up on the hillside, he has a wonderful view of the squalls of rain sweeping across Loch Awe. He is with Grandma Brown. On the right, Grandma Brown is visiting the Tiree relations at the family home, called Tai Na Aird. This is your mum's grandmother at a meeting of the Tiree Association in Glasgow, which was also attended by the Duke of Argyll, who owned the island. This is your mum's grandmother's brother, Donald A. Campbell, who was a seaman in Glasgow. He came up to Aberdeen in 1976 for your Grandpa MacSween's funeral. Alistair Campbell was Tony Blair's right-hand man in the formation of the new Labour Party in 1989. I have been unable to establish a direct family connection to him, but his grandfather was Donald Campbell of Tiree. The location of the Campbell family home at Tai Na Aird on Tiree. Tai Na Aird in 1981 with the original house. Tai Na Aird after it had been purchased by a Swedish family. The part on the left is all that is left of the original house. This shows the connection between the Campbell and MacLean families of Tiree. Donald Dewart MacLean was your mother's second cousin twice removed. On the left, we have Donald Dewart MacLean's family. On the right, we have Donald Dewart MacLean, who worked for British intelligence. Donald was the MacLean of Burgess and MacLean, who along with Kim Philby sold the atom bomb secrets to the Russians after the Second World War. He defected to the USSR with his wife and 3 children, but his wife later left him to live with Kim Philby.
Marjar van droge waar hij was, lies maar langs de logan aan, laat maar oren echt skroei maar geuren. Sol Marjar van droge waar hij was, heet zijn vatte mol waar hij was. Vatte hoog om hem down te nacht, vatte hoog voor een geuren smjörig, heet zijn vatte mol waar hij was. Allilelivo, varivan, varivan, allilelivo, och ett trån av mina hausmär, allilelivo, varivan. Urken jag och som är och kragen kanare nu. Gosnie minnen dragot ponen roć kragere kanare nju. Urken jag och som är